3 of the 4 big professional services firms use HireVue as a way to knock out candidates from the job application process. Are you ready to ace your HireVue at Deloitte, Ernst & Young, or PWC? My name is Patrick. I'm a former hiring manager at a major corporation, and I'm here to explain to you how to ace the HireVue. Deloitte, Ernst & Young, and PWC all use the HireVue in a very similar way. That's why I'm comfortable grouping them together into one video. I'm going to split this video into 3 parts. In part 1, I'm going to talk about what the HireVue is, so you know what to expect. This is great if this is the first time you're applying. On part 2, we'll talk about how the questions are structured. Fortunately for you, all 3 firms structure their questions in very similar ways. And finally, in part 3, we'll look at sample questions and how you should answer them. In that section, we'll look at each firm individually and how you should change your answers according to whose HireVue you're answering. And at the end of the video, we've got a great confidence boosting tip to make sure you ace your HireVue. Okay, let's go to part 1. What to expect on the HireVue. At all 3, before you're called up for any in-person interview, you have to go through the HireVue. After you apply at the careers website, you'll get a link that is unique to you. Open the link on a desktop or laptop computer. I do not recommend doing the HireVue on a cell phone. When you open the link, you need to give HireVue permission to access your camera and microphone. The notification will look something like this. Make sure you click allow. You'll be shown a video by HireVue telling you how great their platform is, and then another video by either Deloitte, EY, or PwC staff talking about how the HireVue is important for their application process. You can skip both videos if you like, they have no bearing on your interview performance. When the HireVue interview starts, you'll be shown a pre-recorded video of somebody from the hiring team at one of the firms that you're applying to asking you a question. After that, you'll get around 30 seconds to prepare your answer, and you'll have about 2 minutes to actually deliver your answer. This process will repeat itself 3 to 5 times until the interview is over. Recording yourself on a HireVue might not seem strange at first, but when you're actually doing it, it's a very weird experience. Get comfortable with the recording experience by practicing on a platform like Voomer, where you can practice on past interview questions in an environment that looks very, very much like HireVue's. That way you'll get comfortable with the process and increase your confidence. Check out the link to a free trial in the pinned comment below. Okay, part 2. What do the questions look like? The questions can be split into 2 categories: motivational questions and behavioral questions. Motivational questions are those classic interview questions like, why do you want to work here? What do we do at Deloitte, EW, or PwC? What interests you about the department you're applying to? They can get really specific, like asking you about what about the audit or tax or consulting department interests you. But those more specific questions will usually be found with Deloitte's interview or Ernst & Young's. PwC tends to use the same question bank for all applicants, no matter what department they're applying to. Second type of question that you'll be asked is the behavioral question. Though you might not have heard that term before, you've certainly been asked the behavioral question before. Those are the questions that start with, tell me about a time when X. The point of those questions is to shed light on your competencies. Now, what are competencies? Competencies is just another term for abilities. So competencies might be your ability to prioritize, your ability to work as a team, your ability to lead, and many others. The questions you'll be asked will sound very familiar with what I just said. So for your ability to prioritize, you might be asked, tell me about the most complex challenge you faced. For your ability to work as a team, they might ask you about a time you had to work with an underperforming teammate. And for leadership, you might be asked about a time that you had to communicate your vision to people. Notice that all these questions follow a pattern, and that is very typical of behavioral questions. They'll ask you about your past behavior, require concrete examples, and the answers should be formatted with the STAR method. That's where you break down your answer into 4 components. S for the situation that you were in, T for the task you were assigned, A for the actions you actually took, and R for the results of those actions. Okay, we're at part 3. We're going to look at sample questions and how you should answer them. Now, with what we've learned from part 1 and 2, nailing the HireVue for Deloitte, Ernst & Young, and PwC is going to be easy, and here's why. The behavioral questions you'll be asked are incredibly easy to answer if you know what to look for. For the behavioral questions that you'll be asked, you just have to figure out what competency they're asking you about, find an example that matches, and answer based on that example. And answer in a way that you give the hiring team exactly what they're looking for. Too fast? Okay, let me go step by step, starting with Deloitte, and then we'll do the other 2. By the way, if you feel like you've got value from this video so far, please comment, like, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. All right, let's go to the Deloitte HireVue interview. First thing you have to do is figure out what competencies Deloitte is interested in. And those are integrity, outstanding value to markets and clients, commitment to each other, and strength from cultural diversity. That's a bit too corporate speak for my taste, so let's simplify these values a little, shall we? Integrity, delighting customers, teamwork, and diversity. Now, this list looks suspiciously like competencies, doesn't it? Well, guess what competencies Deloitte will ask about on the behavioral questions of your HireVue? Questions that probe these competencies. Let's take a look at how these competencies can be turned into questions. The integrity competency can be probed by asking, tell me about a time that your values were challenged. For the delighting clients competency, you might be asked about a time that you had to go above and beyond to make a customer happy. For teamwork, tell me about a time you had to train somebody new. And finally, for diversity, tell me about a time you had to work with somebody from a different cultural background. Now, I can't answer those questions for you because I don't know you and your past experiences. However, I can tell you what to do. Search for examples from your career and your personal life that would be a great match for each of those competencies and those questions. Then, practice answering those questions with that example using the STAR method. Remember, situation, task, action, results. Now let's look at sample questions and the competencies that EY will probe on their HireVue. They're a little simpler than Deloitte. They list 4 core values on their website instead of 4, but these values are kind of harder to break down. And those are people who demonstrate respect, integrity, and teaming, people with energy, enthusiasm, and the courage to lead, and people who build relationships based on doing the right thing. Just like what we did with Deloitte, we can break down these values into competencies. The first one is easy, integrity. The second one is leadership, and the third one is teamwork. Now let's go through some sample questions. For integrity, tell me about a time you faced consequences for doing the right thing. For leadership, tell me about a time you had to delegate responsibility. For teamwork, tell me about a time you helped a struggling team member. Again, look to your career and personal life and search for examples that match those competencies down to a T, and then organize your answers using the STAR method. Now we're at the last company we're analyzing today, PWC. Unfortunately, they have 5 values on their website, so let's break those down. PWC's values are act with integrity, we care, make a difference, we work together, and reimagine the possible. These values aren't as straightforward as Deloitte's or Ernst & Young's to map over 2 competencies. But if you poke around the website a little bit, it becomes clear. And those competencies are integrity, proactivity, inclusiveness, teamwork, and innovation. Great, now let's go through some sample questions for each of those competencies. For integrity, a question on PWC's HireVue might ask you to talk about a time you dealt with a failure in your career. For the proactivity competency, they might ask you, tell me about a time you dealt with something before it became a problem. For inclusiveness, tell me about a time that you challenged the stereotype. For teamwork, tell me about a time you had to onboard somebody new. And for innovation, you might be asked about a time that you took an existing idea and reapplied it to whatever you were working on. With what we've discussed so far, you can easily become an expert at answering those HireVue questions. However, there's one thing this video just can't help you out with, and that's confidence. Confidence is just as important as knowing how to answer the questions. The good news is that confidence is easy to get through practice. Check out tryvoomer.com where you can start practicing right now with these questions and other past HireVue questions. You'll also get AI-powered feedback on your answers so you can really improve quickly and get that confidence boost you need to do well on your HireVue. I'll leave a link to a free trial in the pinned comment below. If you feel like you got value from this video, please hit like, and good luck with your interview.